Hi, how's it going? This is Resident of Collinwood for YouTube. I'm back to do my second and final video for tonight. Here to do a video about Centralia, Pennsylvania. Centralia is a borough near Ghost Town in Columbia County, Pennsylvania, United States. It is part of northeastern Pennsylvania. Its population has declined from 1,000 in 1980 to 5 residents in 2020. Because a coal mine fire has been burning beneath the borough since 1962. Centralia, part of the Bloomsburg-Berwick metropolitan area, is the least populated municipality in Pennsylvania. It is completely surrounded by Conyngham Township. All real estate in borough was claimed under eminent domain in 1992 and condemned by the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Centralia's zip code was discontinued by the Postal Service in 2002. State and local officials reached an agreement with the 7 remaining residents in October 29, 2013, allowing them to remain in Centralia until their deaths, after which the rights to their houses will be taken through eminent domain. So you might ask, what happened? Well, obviously, a coal mine fire. Okay, early history here. Many of the Native American tribes in what is now Columbia County sold the land that makes up Centralia to colonial agents in 1749. In 1770, during the construction of the Reading Road, which stretched from Reading to Fort Augusta, present-day Sunbury, settlers surveyed and explored the land. A large portion of the Reading Road was developed later as Route 61, the main highway east into and south out of Centralia. In 1793, Robert Morris, a hero of the Revolutionary War and signatory of the Declaration of Independence, acquired a third of Centralia's valley land. When he declared bankruptcy in 1798, the land was surrendered to the Bank of the United States. A French sea captain named Stephen Gerard purchased Morris's land for $30,000, including 68 tracts east of Morris. He had learned that there was anthracite coal in the region. This is going to come back to haunt Centralia in a way. The Centralia coal deposits were largely overlooked before the construction of the Mine Run Railroad in 1854. In 1832, Jonathan Faust opened the Bull's Head Tavern in what was called Roaring Creek Township. This gave the town its first name, Bull's Head, in 1842. Centralia's land was bought by the Locust Mountain Coal and Iron Company. Alexander Ray, a mining engineer, moved his family in and began planning a village, laying out streets and lots for development. Ray named the town Centuryville, but in 1865 changed it to Centralia because the U.S. Post Office already had a Centuryville in Schuylkill County. The Mine Run Railroad was built in 1854 to transport coal out of the valley. The first two mines in Centralia opened in 1856, the Locust Run Mine and the Coal Ridge Mine. Afterward came the Hazeldale Colliery Mine in 1860, the Centralia Mine in 1862 and the Continental Mine in 1863. The Continental was located on Stephen Girard's former estate, branching from the Lee Valley Railroad. The Lee and Mahoney Railroad was constructed to Centralia in 1865. It enabled transport and expansion of Centralia's coal sales to markets in eastern Pennsylvania. Centralia was incorporated as a borough in 1866. Its principal employer was the anthracite coal industry Alexander. The town's founder was murdered in his buggy by members of the Molly Maguires on October 17th, 1868, during a trip between Centralia and Mount Carmel. 3 men were eventually convicted of his death and were hanged in the county seat of Bloomsburg on March 25, 1878. Several other murders and incidences of arson also took place during the violence, as Centralia was a hotbed of Molly Maguires actively during the 1860s, who organized a mine workers union in order to improve wages and working conditions. A legend among locals in Centralia tells the father, Daniel Ignatius McDermott, the first Roman Catholic priest to call Centralia home, cursed the land in retaliation for being assaulted by 3 members of the Maguires in 1869. McDermott said that there would be a day when St. Ignatius Roman Catholic Church will be the only structure remaining in Centralia. Many of the Molly Maguires leaders were hanged in 1877. Ending their crimes, legends say that the number of descendants of the Molly Maguires still lived in Centralia up until the 1980s. Sorry. Now, I'm reading this on Wikipedia. There's a sign that says "Warning: Danger: Underground Mine Fires," which I believe it was the coal fires that caught fire. That's okay. According to numbers of federal census records, the town of Centralia reached its maximum population of 2,761 in 1890. At its peak, the town had 7 churches, 5 hotels, 27 saloons, 2 theaters, a bank, a post office, and 14 general and grocery stores. 37 years later, the production of anthracite coal had reached its peak in Pennsylvania in the following years. Production declined as many young miners from Centralia enlisted in the military when the U.S. entered World War I. The Wall Street crash of 1929 resulted in the Lee Valley Coal Company closing 5 of its Centralia local mines. Bootleg miners continued mining in several idle mines, using techniques such as what was called pillar robbing, where miners would extract coal from coal pillars left in mines to support their roofs. This caused the collapse of many idle mines, further complicating the prevention of the mine fire. In 1962, efforts to seal off the abandoned mines ran into the collapsed areas. In 1950, Centralia Council acquired the rights to all anthracite coal beneath Centralia through a state law passed in 1949 that enabled the transaction that year. The federal census counted 1,986 residents of Centralia. Coal mining continued in Centralia until 1960s, when most of the companies shut down. Bootleg mining continued until 1982, and strip and open pit mining are still active in the area. An underground mine about 3 miles to the west employs about 40 people. Rail service ended in 1966. Centralia operated its own school district, including elementary schools and a high school. There were also two Catholic parochial schools by 1980. It had 1,012 residents. Another 500 or 600 lived nearby. Mine fire. Okay, here's the Centralia. The Centralia mine fire. Okay, here we go. Sorry, guys. Is a coal fire that has been burning in the labyrinth of the abandoned coal mines underneath the borough of Centralia, Pennsylvania, United States, since at least May 27th, 1962. Its original cause and start date are still a matter of debate. It is burning in underground coal mines at the depths of up to 300 feet, 90 meters, over an 8-mile, 13-kilometer stretch of 3,700 acres, 15 kilometers. At its current rate, it could continue to burn for over 250 years. It has caused most of the town to be abandoned. By 2017, the population had dwindled to 5 residents from 1,500 at the time of the fire is believed to have started, and most of the buildings have been razed. Okay, background. On May 7th, 1962, the Centralia Council met to discuss the approaching Memorial Day and how the town would go about cleaning up the Centralia landfill, which was introduced earlier that year. The 300-foot wide, 75-foot long, 91 meters times 23-meter pit was made up of a 50-foot drop, 15-mile strip mine that had been cleared by Edward Whitney in 1935 and came very close to the northeast corner of Oddfellows Cemetery. There were 8 illegal dumps spread about Centralia, and the council's intention in creating the landfill was to stop the illegal dumping, as new state regulations had forced the town to close an earlier dump west of St. Ignatius Cemetery. Trustees at the cemetery were opposed to the landfill's proximity to the cemetery, but recognized the illegal dumping elsewhere as a serious problem and envisioned that the new pit would resolve it. Pennsylvania had passed a precautionary law in 1956 to regulate landfill use in strip mines, as landfills were known to cause destructive mine fires. The law required a permit and regular inspection for municipally to use such a pit. George Segertis, a regional landfill inspector who worked for the Department of Mines and Mineral Industries, became concerned about the pit when he noticed holes in the walls and floor, as such mines often cut through older mines underneath. Segertis informed Joseph Tiggy a Centralia County require filling in with the incomparable material. Fire. This was a world where no human could live hotter than the planet Mercury. Its atmosphere is poisonous as Saturn. At the heart of the fire, temperatures easily exceeded 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit, 540 degrees Celsius. Lethal clouds of carbon monoxide and other gases swirled through the rock chambers. David Deacock, Unseen Danger, A Tragedy of People, Government, and the Centralia Mine Fire, University of Pennsylvania Press. That's who wrote that. Plan and execution. The town council arranged for cleanup of the strip mine dump, but council minutes did not describe the proposed procedure. Deacock surmises that the process, setting it on fire, was not specified because state law prohibited dump fires. Nonetheless, the Centralia Council set a date and hired 5 members of the volunteer firefighter company to clean up the landfill. A fire was ignited to clean up the dump on May 27th, 1962. A water was used to douse the visible flames that night. However, flames were seen once more on May 29th using hoses hooked up from the Locust Avenue. Another attempt was made to douse the fire that night. Another flare-up in the following week. June 4th caused the Centralia Fire Company to once again douse it with hoses. A bulldozer stirred up the garbage so that the firemen could douse concealed layers of the burning waste. A few days later, a hole as wide as 15 feet, 4-6 meters, and several feet high was found in the base of the north wall of the pit. Garbage had concealed the hole and prevented it from being filled with the incumbent material. It is possible that this hole led to the mine fire, as it provided a pathway to the labyrinth of old mines under the borough. Evidence indicates that despite these efforts to douse the fire, the landfill continued to burn. On July 2nd, Monsignor William J. Burke complained about the foul odors from the smoldering trash and coal reaching St. Ignace Church. Even then, the Centralia Council still allowed the dumping of garbage into the pit. Clarence Moshe Kishner, the president of the Independent Miners, Brakemen, and Truckers Union, came at the invitation of the council member to inspect the situation in Centralia. Kushner evaluated the events and called Gordon Smith, an engineer of the Department of Miners and Mineral Industries office in Pottsville. Smith told the town that he could dig out the smoldering material using a steam shovel for $175. A call was placed to Art Joyce, a mine inspector from Mount Carmel, who brought gas detection equipment for use on a swirling wisp of smoke now emanating from ground fissures in the north wall of the landfill pit. Tests concluded that the gases seeping from the large hole in the pit wall and from the cracks north wall contained carbon monoxide, concentration typical of coal mine fires. Escalation. The Centralia Council sent a letter to the Lee Valley Coal Company as formal notice of the fire. It is speculated the town council decided that hiding the true origin of the fire would serve better than alerting the LVCC, that's the Lee Valley Coal Company, of the truth, which would most likely end in receiving no help from them. In the letter, The Bureau described the starting of a fire of unknown origin during a period of unusual hot weather. Preceding an August 6th meeting at the fire site, which would include officials from the Lehigh Valley Coal Company and Susquehanna Coal Company, Deputy Secretary of Mines James Schober Sr. expected that the representatives would inform him they could not afford mounting a project that would stop the mine fire. Therefore, Schober announced that he expected the state to finance the cost of digging out the fire, which was at that time around $30,000, roughly equivalent to I'm not gonna read it. 269-000 in 2021. Another offer was made at the meeting proposed by Centralia strip mine operator Alonzo Sanchez, who told members of council that he would dig out the mine fire free of charge as long as he could claim any coal he received without paying royalties to the Lehigh Valley Coal Company. Part of Sanchez's plan was to exploratory drilling to estimate the scope of the mine fire, which was most likely why Sanchez's offer was rejected at the meeting. The drilling would have delayed the project, not to mention the legal problems with the mining rights. At the time, state mine inspectors were in the Centralia area mines almost daily to check for lethal levels of carbon monoxide. Lethal levels were found on August 9th, and all Centralia area mines were closed the next day. Early remediation attempts. First excavation project. Pressured at an August 12th meeting of the United States Workers of America in Centralia, Secretary of Mines Lewis Evans sent a letter to the group on August 15th that claimed he had authorized the project to deal with the mine fire and that bids for the project would be opened on August 17th. 2 days later, the contract was awarded to Brady Inc., a company near Mount Carmel, for an estimated $20,000, roughly equivalent to 179-000 in 2021. Work on the project began August 22nd. The Department of Mines and Mineral Industries, DMMI, who originally believed Verdi would need only to excavate 24,000 CUYD 18,000 meters of earth. Information informed them that they were forbidden from doing any exploratory drilling in order to find the perimeter of the fire, or how deep it was, and that they were to strictly follow plans drawn up by the engineers, who did not believe that the fire was very big or active. The size and location of a fire instead estimated based on the where did I leave off? Amount of steam issuing from the landfill rock. Brady, following the engineering team plan, began by digging on the northern perimeter of the dump pit rim and excavated about 200 feet, 61 meters outward to expand the perimeter. However, the project was untimely ineffective due to multiple factors. Intentionally breaching of the subterranean mine chambers allowed large amounts of oxygen to rush in, greatly worsening the fire. Steve Kessler, a bulldozer operator in British project, said that the project was ineffective because the inrush of air helped the fire move ahead of the excavation point. By the time this section was drilled and blasted, Brady was also using a 20.5 cu yard shovel, which was considered small for the project. Furthermore, the state only permitted Birdie's team to work weekday shifts, which were 8 hours long, and only occurred during the daytime, commonly referred to as first shift in the mining industry. At one point, work was at a standstill for 5 days during the Labor Day weekend in early September. Finally, the fire was traveling in a northward direction, which caused the fire to move deeper into the coal seam. This, combined with the work restrictions and inadequate equipment, greatly increased the excavation cost. Birdie had excavated 58-58 cu yard 44-79 m of earth by the time the project ran out of money and ended on October 29th, 1962. By the way, there were two more excavation projects. Oh, one, two, three. One, there was a second excavation project which failed, a third which failed. Here's the aftermath of all that, by the way. This is in 1984, Wilkes-Barre Representative Frank Harrison proposed legislation which was approved by Congress, which allocated more than $42 million for relocation efforts, equivalent to $110 million in 2021. Most of the residents accepted buyouts offers and dispersed far away from the area. Data from the 1990 United States Census shows that nearby towns continued to lose population at the same rate as previous decades, suggesting to Centralians did not locate there. A few families opted to stay despite urgings from Pennsylvania officials. In 1992, Pennsylvania Governor Bob Casey invoked eminent domain on all properties in the borough, condemning all the buildings within. A subsequent legal effort by residents to have the decision reversed failed in 2002. The U.S. Post Office Service revoked Centralia's zip code, which is 17927. In 2009, Governor Ed Rendell began the formal eviction of Centralia residents. By early 2010, only 5 occupied homes remained, with the residents determined to stay. In lawsuits, the remaining residents allege that they were victims of massive fraud, motivated primarily by interest on what is conceivably estimated at hundreds of billions of dollars of some of the best anthracite coal in the world. Good luck getting to it. In July of 2012, the last handful of residents of Centralia lost their appeal of a court of decision upheld eminent domain proceedings and was ordered again to leave. State and local officials reached an agreement with the 7 remaining residents on October 29, 2013, allowing them to live out their lives there, after which the rights of their properties will be taken through eminent domain. The Centralia mine fire also extended beneath the town of Burnsville, a few miles to the south. The town had to be abandoned and leveled. The Centralia area has now grown to be a tourist attraction. Visitors come to see the smoke and or steam on Centralia's empty streets and abandoned portion of PA. Route 61, popularly referred to as the Graffiti Highway. As of April 2020, efforts began to cover up the Graffiti Highway by the private owner of the road. The abandoned highway was covered by dirt in April 2020, generally blocking public access to the road. All right, guys, so that's what happened. Very, very sad and very unfortunate. Little did you know, not the game, but the movie Silent Hill, is based out of. They use the town of Centralia, their story and what happened there. They actually use one of the churches from the town. Um, so that's that. Crazy, crazy stuff. Hope you guys have a great night.